Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Steph. And this vlog is dedicated to getting my shit together. So I have a lot of obligation books that I need to read, and I need to read them by the end of the month. And while we have 2 weeks left until the end of the month, I know myself. I will wait till the last possible minute. I am going into this week with the intentions of finishing at least 3 books. I have about 5 books that I need to read by the end of the month, but I am setting aside time this week to read at least 3 of them, at least. So it is Sunday and I have plans. It's a very gloomy day actually, so I'm really excited to run errands because I don't know what it is about gloomy weather. It's drizzling a little bit. It just makes me feel productive. It makes me feel alive, okay? Those fall vibes are fall vibing, and I am going to run errands today, so I need to grocery shop because I have not grocery shopped in like 2 weeks and I literally don't have any food. We're going to Target. I need dish soap, I need eyebrow stuff, I need some more shampoo and conditioner, I need some more lotion, and maybe I'll pick up a shirt and a spooky blanket if like I see one. If I see it there, it might go into my basket, and by might, it's absolutely going into my basket. And then on top of trying to set myself up for a successful week, I'm going to try to start one of the 5 books that I really need to read by the end of this month. So the one that I think I'm actually going to focus on, because I was supposed to have read this by the end of last month, and it's well past that time. Divine Rivals. This was our buddy read pick, so I definitely need to read this. I was like a quarter of the way into this, but I think I took out my bookmark because I was like, I'm just gonna restart it, which I might, I don't know. I was listening to it on audiobook. I wasn't even physically reading it, so I might just start the audiobook where I was currently at and see if I remember when I was reading, but if not, I'll just restart it. So this is what I'll be focusing on today. It's pretty short, so I feel like I can get through a good portion of it today, if not tomorrow. I read a lot on Mondays and Tuesdays, so I feel like I could get this one done. As for the other 4, I have Vampires of El Norte. This is my book club pick for this month, so we'll be talking about it at the end of the month. So I would like to focus on this one after Divine Rivals. Otherwise, the other 3 are just hopefuls. So I have Pride and Prejudice, because we are doing like a classics buddy read. It's a very casual classic buddy read in my Patreon, and a lot of people are already finishing it, or they have at least started it, and I have not. So I want to get to this one soon. I'd also really like to pick up Monstrilio. I do have the audiobook for this from Libby, and I've heard from a few of my patrons that this reads really quickly. This is for Kayla's Literally Dead book club. This is the September pick. I am so fortunate to be a host, and we will be discussing it at the beginning of October, I'm pretty sure. And then on my Kindle, I've been reading Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang, and M.L. Wang is the author of Sword of Kaigen. I loved Sword of Kaigen. It was one of my favorite books of last year. Yeah, last year. I read it last year. So it was one of my favorite books, and I was highly anticipating this new release. I am already 15% into it. This was the group pick for our 24 and 36 hour readathon that just happened this weekend. It actually just ended like at 4 a.m. this morning. So a lot of us have been discussing it in the Discord, and I would really love to actually get it done by the end of the month, because my intentions were to read it in the 24 hours. But typical me, every time I do a readathon, I never finish anything. So these plus Blood Over Bright Haven, those are my intentions for this week. I know that I'll only finish like 3 of them. I'm not expecting to cram in 5 books in a week. I know myself. I know my limitations, but I'm really hopeful. I am really hopeful. Okay, we're gonna set up this Sunday well.
Take a train ride just to see you. For hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you, 'cause you're my home away from away from home, away from being alone. I did the
very productive day yesterday. I got grocery shopping done. I meal prepped a little bit, made some soup. We also tried our hand at bread for the first time. It was very pale, but it was quite delicious. Got my laundry done, and I managed to do some editing yesterday. So I'm feeling really good. I feel really set up for a successful week. And I laugh at myself every time. I'm so shocked at like being productive on a Sunday and setting yourself up for a successful week actually sets you up for a successful week. But like, I don't know, I just love living like a potato most of the time. So why would I set myself up for success ever when I can just relax? That's not true. I love being productive. It does make me feel really great. It boosts that serotonin. And today after work, I actually have plans to exercise. I'm gonna do some exercise. Can you believe it? It's been a few months. I've really been in a lot of pain. I have arthritis, if you didn't know. I've been in a lot of pain, so exercising has been difficult to muster up the courage to do, but I'm mustering. We're mustering today. On top of all of that, I got to part 2 in Divine Rivals, which is exactly 100 pages, and I'm enjoying this. I don't know that I'm fully invested, but I'm also just like along for the ride. There are certain things in the plot so far that have made me emotional, so I do feel like Iris, especially, who's one of our main characters, I feel pretty connected to her. Our secondary main character, Kit, who's also, I think, a love interest, because I'm pretty sure this is a fantasy romance. I'm not as invested in his character arc so far, but I don't dislike him. He's kind of forgettable, which is not the best for a love interest. I keep calling the love interest Kit. When they're at work, everyone keeps calling him Kit, but his name is actually Roman. So this has been interesting because there are gods warring and people are going off to war to fight for one side or the other. And Iris's brother ends up going and fighting in this war as well, and she hasn't heard from him, which to her is very unusual. So to combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them under her wardrobe, where they end up vanishing. And not long after she had started sending these letters, somebody anonymously writes back. It turns out that that anonymous person is Roman, but he writes back anonymously, so she has no idea that it is him, and they form a bond through these letters. I always feel weird when one person knows the identity of the person they're writing to and the other doesn't. Feel very weird about that. I still feel weird about it in here. Even though I do like the letter writing aspect, I always feel awkward about that dynamic. It just feels off to me. And then you have Roman Kit, and Roman Kit comes from a wealthy family, and Iris and Roman are both vying for a promotion at the newspaper they work at called the Oath Gazette. And they're both very talented. They both know each other as talented, but they're sort of rivals. I wouldn't say they're quite enemies, but they're definitely rivals in the workplace. And they like to insult each other, and they like to kind of tear each other down in different ways. And even though they're rivals, they both see each other's talent. It's very obvious that they know both of them are deserving of this position. So I am enjoying this. I like the competitive nature of these two characters, and I like the letter writing, even despite my qualms about one identity not being known. But I'm having a good time. I'm not as invested as I want to be, but I feel like I can really love this by the end. And the writing, as always, is beautiful. I love Rebecca Ross's writing. I'm excited to continue, and I'm excited to see where it's going, because I really have no idea where this book can go. I figure we're just going to be learning more about this war and the gods and Iris and Roman, you know, falling in love, because it's an enemies to lovers romance. Hello friends, I just got back from pottery, and while I was in class I ended up finishing Divine Rivals, and I don't know what to rate it. I will have a sit down little chit chat with y'all about my overall feelings a little bit later, but right now I don't know how to feel about it. I didn't know that this was going to be a series. I was just making my little mug, and I looked down and I saw that I had 10 minutes left of the audiobook, and I was like, this is not making sense. Things weren't adding up. So anyway, I had a very jarring experience. Also, part 3 was my favorite part of all of the parts, and it also makes me want to give it a 4 stars. Also, because I finished Divine Rivals, I ended up starting Vampires of El Norte, and I'm already 4 chapters in, also loving this. I already feel like this is going to be tragic and break my heart. This has the potential to be one of my favorite books of the year, and it's already starting off really well. So I'm very excited to continue on, but I have to get ready for work. But yeah, whenever I get back from work, I will try to give you a more cohesive update about Divine Rivals. I think I've gathered all my thoughts for Divine Rivals. I don't really know. We'll see how this review goes. Part of me wants to give it a 3.5, but I think I'm going to settle on a 4 stars only because I was very much invested in Iris's story. I really like Iris as a character, and I loved following following her and I liked her journey throughout this story. And I think that for me, for most of this story, Roman was just kind of a one-note character until the act 3 or part 3 of this book, when I really enjoyed him as a character. And maybe Roman was someone that was hard for me to get on board with because of what I said previously about really disliking when somebody keeps their identity from somebody else and they're still interacting with this person in their day-to-day, and it's like, come on, this is weird. It just feels like a consent thing that I have a hard time with, and it's probably me just building it up in my brain. I don't know, but I feel very uncomfy by it. So I think that really colored my perspective on Roman and my enjoyment of him as a character. But in part 3, I think he sort of redeemed himself for me, and I did ultimately like the romance in here. So I think that's why I want to give it a 4 stars, because I ended up actually falling for the romance, which I didn't think that I would. And the way that this ended on a cliffhanger, I genuinely thought this was a standalone, which I don't know why, because I don't know that Rebecca Ross has ever done a standalone, but I genuinely thought this was a standalone. And so when it ended, I was like, what? I usually really like duologies. I think duologies can be really fun, but this was so short that part of me is like, maybe it shouldn't have been a duology. Maybe you could have just put it in one book, but we'll find out. Ultimately, I had a lot of fun. This was a very easy, fast-paced read. I found myself invested when I didn't think that I was, so I do feel like a 4 stars is good. I'm just not sure how I feel about the ending, and I'm not sure how I feel about the reveal with a certain character that we had kind of been leading up to meeting this whole time. I just don't know. I just don't know. Also, I can say that after part 1, I really enjoyed the tone and like all of the characters that we met after part 1. So I also think that's contributing to me wanting to give this a 4 stars, because there were so many characters that are just like side characters, I guess, that I ended up really loving. And I really enjoyed the atmosphere of the rest of the parts after part 1, because it was so vastly different than the first part. The tone really shifted and I enjoyed that tone a lot more. And again, I felt like it was more focused on Iris than on Roman. So probably another reason why I liked it a little bit more. And it sounds like I dislike Roman. I don't. I just felt like he was very one note. So it wasn't until part 3 that I was on board with him as a character, which is why I'm really struggling with rating this book and wanting to rate this book, because I'm like, it's a duology. Should I just wait until the next one? Which I don't do very often. I don't know why I'm having such a dilemma about this. It's really not that deep. But anyway, I have to go to work, so I will talk to y'all in the next clip.
Woke up wanting you beside me. I don't know what else to say. Ain't no particular reason, just hit by your wave. Maybe I'll grab a cup of coffee and listen to our favorite song. I'm such an idiot, I'm pathetic, thought I was moving on. I don't want anybody, I want you. I miss your olive skin, I miss my muse. So if you wanna find me,
please excuse my appearance. I just showered and I'm reading Vampires of El Norte. I'm obsessed with this book and I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of my favorite books of the year, because the writing and the character work alone has been incredible. Like from chapter 1, I was already connected with the characters, which doesn't happen to me very easily. And I was already annotating the very first chapter, like the first line. So I'm loving this book, but I need to read you this line, because if this book is nothing else, it's all about mutual pining. Okay, it's all about mutual pining. He could survive on the scraps from her table. Had he not spent the last 9 years starving, anything she gave him now was a bounty. It would be fine. He's gonna survive on the scraps from her table because he's been starving for 9 years. I'm a simple woman. You give me pining, I'm gonna eat that up. Hello and welcome to The Sun Sets Earlier, and now I'm in horrible lighting, but I have some Target packages. One of them is not exciting at all. So I've just been using the Dr. Bronner's chapstick for years. I normally like the peppermint one, but I heard that that really irritates your lips and makes them dry. But I love the feeling of this chapstick. I've literally been using it for like 6 years. The actual exciting package is this one. So I wanted to get some fall stuff, and a couple of the things that I wanted were not in the store. So first up, you know I had to do it. When you see them, I think it'll all make sense. I had to get these slippers. These are ghosts. They say boo. Ghosts. Ghost slippers. I mean, I think it's obvious by now, but my favorite Halloween creature, one of my favorite things just generally, is ghosts. I love ghosts so much in any shape. I'm not discriminatory against the ghost, okay? And then lastly, I got another blanket. This one was so cute. I actually saw a pillow too that had this design, and I'm thinking about getting it, but I already have so many pillows and so little couch, you know? I'm so excited. It's so soft. I love it so much. It's like all types of things. Look at the cat. It's cats and bats and witch hats and pumpkins and snakes. You would have probably seen it because I did a little B-roll moment in the beginning of this vlog where we went and ran errands, and I actually had bought another blanket, the same brand. It's the pumpkin one. So I ended up getting this one earlier this week. Love it. Been obsessed with it. They're so soft, and I wanted to get one for Jared and one for me. So he's getting the pumpkin one and I'm getting this one. But yeah, I ended up ordering these things because when we went to Target, a lot of their stuff was sold out. I was so wanting that ghost mug, which I'll put a picture right here if I remember, but I've been wanting that ghost mug, but they are sold out everywhere, and even online you can't get it. Anyway, that was my little Target haul. Hello. I have not had a chance to sit down and talk about Vampires of El Norte. I'm loving this book so much. Not that I read The Hacienda and I had anything to compare it to, but I didn't really expect this to be so romance heavy, or the fact that I would be so invested in these characters and this romance. So this is in 1840s Mexico, and we're following two characters, Nestor and Nena. And Nena and Nestor are 13 when the story begins, and they kind of have this beautiful friendship that's bordering on them being in love with each other. And the very first opening scene is them sneaking out at night and Nena getting attacked to the point where Nestor thought she died. And he ends up running away because rather than facing her death, he would rather just grieve elsewhere and not have to be constantly reminded of her. Despite him not knowing that she's alive, his whole life continues to be about her. He continues to think about what their future would have been. He like will not move on from her, which was so beautiful. And then come 1846, the United States is trying to invade Mexico, and Nestor decides to go back to try and fight the United States or the Yankees. And once he does that, once he goes back, he finds out that Nena is alive. And Nena is so cold towards him because she's like, you left me. You left without a word. I don't know where you've been for 9 years. And it's just so full of tension and pining, like mutual pining. I am so obsessed with this book. So I'm about halfway through, and I did want to say that while this says vampires, it's not the type of vampires you're thinking of. They're also not the forefront of this story. The story really is about Nestor and Nena and everything that happened to them, but also the United States invading Mexico and how that's affecting these families and these ranchers. So vampires are kind of used as both a metaphor and they actually exist in this book. The metaphor being the Yankees or the United States as vampires, as bloodsuckers. They suck the land and resources and people dry, but there are also creatures that we don't really know that much about. We're kind of exploring it with Nena and Nestor, and I'm having a grand old time. There's circumstances in which Nestor and Nena are kind of forced together. I love it so much. I really didn't know this was going to be romance heavy, and I'm eating it up. I'm very much looking forward to picking up The Hacienda, which I want to pick up next month for sure. I know that that one's not as romance heavy. It's definitely about like the haunted house vibes. I'm just very excited because if nothing else, the writing writing in here is stunning. I find myself highlighting so many things. I just want this book tattooed on my heart because the writing, the sentences, the pining, it's so beautiful. Guess what? There's a goose on the loose. If you haven't been around for a while, we adopted a new cat. He actually adopted us. He was living in our garage. We took him to the vet to see if he had a chip and also to see if he was healthy. He didn't have a chip. I asked around the neighborhood. No one seemed to know who he was. No one had seemed to have lost a cat. So we went in with the intentions of just like fostering to adopt out and kind of fell in love with him. So now he lives with us. We now have 3 cats. The girls are doing okay with him. They don't like him, but they don't hate him. There's no like attacks or anything like that. They're doing all right. They're coexisting. I finished Vampires of El Norte and I loved this book so much. I'm giving it 5 stars. I don't think this is gonna be for everyone. I definitely don't think this will be everyone's favorite. I think there are gonna be things that people complain about. I've already been reading Goodreads reviews because it actually doesn't have as good of ratings as I thought it was going to. And I don't actually know how people felt about the Hacienda because I don't wanna look at reviews before hopping into that one. But I loved this. I loved the romance. I liked the historical fiction aspect. It's really funny because I'm not technically a historical fiction person. Like I don't gravitate towards historical fiction, but I love history. Even in school, I really loved history. I loved learning about different periods in time. It was always very fascinating for me. And so I've always wondered why I don't gravitate towards historical fiction. And I came to the realization the other day with my friend Isabelle because we were talking about this book in particular. I realized that like most historical fiction is World War II. I feel like it's possible there is potential for us to explore other things. So that being said, I feel like that's why I found this one to be so fascinating. And then I think the way that vampires were used in here really worked for me. Yes, I think vampires in the title could be misleading for some people depending on what you want out of your vampires. These are monstrous creatures. They definitely are monstrous creatures. They're not the forefront of the story. The romance and this misconnection is very much the forefront of the story, whereas the border wars and the vampires are kind of the backdrop of it. But like it is a part of what brings these 2 people back together and also what pulled them apart to begin with. So obviously for me, I didn't really find it boring to learn about the vampires. I was very interested in them. If you've watched Midnight Mass, I feel like the vampires remind me of those creatures. But overall, I just really loved the romance because I'm a simple woman. I just love pining. I love mutual pining that is almost painful. I don't know why I'm like this, but I love pining so much, and that's what you get here, especially with Nestor. Like, he is the epitome of sad boy pining after the love of his life. He's never gonna find anybody that comes remotely close to his first love. He will never settle on another love because nothing will ever come close to that first love, and he's gonna spend his whole life pining for what could have been. That is Nestor. And Nena is all fire. She is feisty, fiery. I loved her so much. I really loved both of these characters, and I think I said it in the beginning. There was just something about even the first 2 chapters that sucked me in and made me really love these characters and be invested in them immediately, which does not happen to me very often, if ever. I don't know the last time that that's happened to me, because by the end of chapter 2, I needed to know where this was going, what was going to happen with these 2. I also just highlighted so many things in here. I'm talking some of these passages, I might as well have just highlighted the whole damn page. The whole page is basically highlighted. I loved the writing. I loved the 2 characters. I was happy about the ending. I enjoyed the backdrop. I enjoyed most everything about this. So this will probably be one of my favorite books of the year. I'm sure this won't land for everyone. I'm like 100% sure of it, especially after reading reviews. But it worked for me, and it was what I needed. And it really made me feel that intense joy of reading, like when you find something that's just working so well for you and you're reminded why you read.
Watching reruns of our story while I'm lying on my back. I don't want anybody, I want you. I never talk about it, don't talk to you. But if you wanna find me, here's your excuse. I'll send a telepathic message with my coordinates to you. I'm right where you left me. And baby,
friends, I thought this was a good setup, so I decided to just update you. So earlier today, I went to my pottery workshop. Normally I have a pottery class on Tuesday mornings, and then there are pottery workshops on Friday, so you can either go in the morning or the afternoon. And one of my friends was like, hey, I'm gonna go to the morning one. There's some room. Do you wanna go? And I said, sure, why not? So I ended up going. While I was at my pottery workshop, I ended up starting Monstrilio, and I'm really enjoying it. It reads very quickly. It's a little bit disgusting, but it's also just very sad, and it's very much about grief, and there's some body horror elements to it that I'm enjoying. Although I hesitate to say that I'm enjoying them because they're pretty grotesque, but I love the grief that's being explored in here. I enjoy a grief book, as you probably know. I tend to really love grief books, so I'm having a good time. Other than my pottery class, I ended up having coffee with one of my coworkers who's also my friend. We ended up having some coffee and chatting, and then I came home and I just finished filming an unhaul with me video, so that should be up actually before this video goes up. I've been trying to do like a sit down video or something of the sort on Sundays, and then on Wednesday/Thursday, I've been trying to upload a vlog. I've been having a lot of fun just weekly vlogging and doing whatever I want. I think it's been helping with my feeling of burnout, where I'm feeling really creative right now, and hopefully that lasts. Hopefully I'm not doing something counterintuitive like burning myself out even more, but you know, we're already in it. We're already doing it. I'm on my third book of the vlog, and I'm feeling really good about getting caught up with my book club picks and my buddy read picks, and like having those spoilery vlogs done as well. Tomorrow, my friend and I are going to a pottery supplies sale. I guess it's like this huge annual sale that they have every year, and I guess it's super busy, so Jared's going with us so that he can be the person to stand in line while we run around and grab all the things that we want to get. Anyway, I'm gonna go make a bagel and then hop onto some sprints and probably edit.
My girl thinks I'm dead inside. 23, she's full of life.
I don't know if you can see Goose. As you saw yesterday, I did an unhaul. I have an unhaul video too. I'll link it down below because it will already be out before this video goes out. And today we are gonna run around to the little free libraries around here and give away a good portion of the books. And then the used bookstore that I wanted to sell to, they're appointment based, and our appointment isn't until next week. And then anything I give to the library, I don't show because I work at that library. I'm a librarian there, and so I don't really want to show it. Okay, so we're back. We ended up getting all of the books put into little free libraries, donated a few to the library, and now I just have this stack and this stack, and that's going to be going to the bookstore. So we did way better than I thought with the little free libraries, because usually they're max capacity. By the way, I'm obsessed with that TikToker. Anyway, but while I was at the library, I also ended up getting some books, and I have 2 books that I recently acquired from the Barnes & Noble. We ended up going to Barnes & Noble like right after we went to this big pottery sale, sale, and I ended up getting two things that I was actually anticipating, but one of the booksellers was actually standing there when I was looking at one of these books, and they convinced me that I needed to get this one. And that one is Dark Water Daughter by H.M. Long. So this author also wrote Hall of Smoke, which I did read. I got an advanced reader copy of this when it was coming out back in like 2020, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't move on with the series though. I'm not sure why. I'm sure I'll reread it if I end up enjoying this and like moving on with that series and then reading. I think they have another book that came out last year, but this one is their most recent release, and it's like a pirate book. But it says Mary Firth is a storm singer, a woman whose voice can still hurricanes and shatter armadas. Faced with servitude to pirate lord Sylvanus Lur, Mary offers her skill to his arch rival in exchange for protection and helping send Lur to a watery grave. But her new ally has a vendetta of his own. But Mary's dreams are dark and full of gistings, spectral creatures who inhabit the ancient forest of her homeland and the figureheads of ships. Listen, I love a pirate book. I'm very excited to check this one out. And then I ended up getting Witch of Wild Things, and I'm pretty sure this is fantasy romance. I picked this up on one of the recommendations of my patrons, Nat. We actually ended up meeting in person at the Rip Bodice, and it was such a nice time. I loved meeting them, and they were talking about this book and how they thought that I would like it and that they really loved it. So I'm very excited to try this one out, and I actually think that I want to do a little witchy vlog after this one. I'm really in the mood for that. So I think that's what I'm going to be starting next week. And then I picked up a stack of books from the library because that's just what I do. I just have comfort stacks of library books all around my house. So I got Witches. Seems pretty on brand for what I was just saying. I've been seeing this around on Instagram actually, and I saw somebody's review recently that made me want to pick it up. I can't exactly remember everything that they said about it, but I know that this has like ancestral magic in it, and I think it takes place in Mexico. I'm kind of trying to go into this without knowing that much anyway, so I'm looking forward to picking this up. And then I've just been in like a spooky YA mood, and so I was like, I need to get them from the library because YA is very hit or miss for me right now. So I ended up getting Blood Debts, which I've seen around. I don't know if this is actually witchy. Christina, once a talented and dedicated practitioner of generational magic, has given up magic for good. An ancient spell is what killed their father, and she was the one who cast it. And then I don't actually think this one is witchy. It says in a city full of secrets, their magic is the best kept one of all. And that's Nightbirds. I'm a sucker for these covers. YA has the best covers. And then the one I actually went there for is She's a Haunting, and this is supposed to be a haunted house story. I think there's ghosts in here as well. I, again, don't want to know too much about it, but this cover, once again, stunning. No one does it like YA. We have to admit that. And then my memory card is about to run out, but I did want to update you that I started Monstrilio, and I'm 118 pages into it. I'm loving this. I love the writing. This is unhinged in so many ways. It's very unexpected. I'm not sure what I thought this book would be, but it really wasn't this, but at the same time kind of is what I thought it would be. It's very unhinged, but it's also very much about grief. And so I'm interested in where this is going to go, because this event sort of took place around the 20% mark. And I was like, wait, where are we going to go from here? But then it kind of twisted into something else. So I'm looking forward to reading more of this. I'm going to be listening to this for the rest of the day while I clean and do some chores, because I'm, again, trying to set myself up for a good week. So I finished Monstrilio yesterday when I was doing pottery, and I don't know how to feel about this book. I don't know how I feel about the ending. I took time, I slept on it to try to figure out how I feel about this book, and my overall feelings are that I liked it. I thought it was an interesting exploration of grief and what you would do for your child. But it also ended in a way that I don't know how to feel about. I don't really know how I feel about it. I can't say that I absolutely loved the writing. The writing was very captivating. And this, interestingly, in some ways kind of reminded me of Our Share of Night, but like absolutely not. I think it was the way that it was told and some of the things that it focused on. I think it's because this is told almost in 4 parts, because you get 4 different perspectives, which also happens in Our Share of Night. So I think it's just the storytelling style. Also, the exploration of grief in here was so unique and interesting, but I also really enjoyed read it because I love a grief book. Because when you enter into this story, you're entering into a story where a son has just died and a mother and father are grieving. And they're both grieving so differently and it tears them apart. But the mother has heard of this folklore of a wife who took her husband's heart and regrew him, basically. And so she decides to do this with her son's lung. And so there's such an interesting array of things that happen. Sorry, I lost my train of thought because Goose has been introduced into the household, you know? But all of them Fitz very much don't appreciate his existence. So anyway, I had to like let her know that it was fine. She's fine. All I was trying to say is that after the lung situation, after she takes a piece of his lung and tries to regrow it, there's such an interesting dynamic between all of these characters and the decisions that they make. It was very unique. I really enjoyed it. I just don't know how I feel about the ending. There is going to be a live show on Kayla's channel from Books and Lala. This is for her Literally Dead book club. So I'll try to remember to come back here and link that live show because hopefully by then I have some concrete thoughts of my feelings, especially about the ending. But overall, I really enjoyed my time with this book. I think it's one of those books that I'll definitely reread at some point because I'm sure there's a lot that I missed and didn't pick up on. But overall, I feel like I would give this a 4 out of 5 stars. That's my gut feeling. But we'll see by the time the live show happens if that rating changes. Anyway, I feel like this was such a productive week and so successful in me reading the books that I needed to read for various book clubs and my buddy read. I got through more than I anticipated. I've been reading a lot slower recently just because of everything in life. Life in general has been lifing a little too hard. But thank you as always for spending this week with me. I hope that you had a fun time. If you've made it this far and you have nothing else to say, feel free to leave some cat emojis down below and I will talk to you next time. Bye friends.